The purple cliffs around the valley reflected the dying light of Prime's twin suns. Commander pressed her back against a boulder, breathing hard. Her silver battle marks gleamed with sweat on her azure skin. Around her, the bodies of her squad lay scattered across the scorched ground. This was supposed to be simple. 8 warriors, 1 reconnaissance mission. Check the valley for activity and report back. But the intelligence had been wrong, terribly wrong. They weren't just in the valley, they were everywhere. Counted her remaining shots. 19 energy bolts left in her sidearm. She looked up at the ridge where hundreds of warriors clicked and chittered, their black carapaces shining like oil in the fading light. Their compound eyes tracked her every movement. They were in no hurry. They knew she had nowhere to go. Minyu had died first. Her second-in-command had taken a claw through the chest while covering the squad's retreat. Watched him fall, his energy spear clattering on the rocks. She wanted to retrieve his body, but 3 more had rushed in. She had to keep moving. The healer died trying to save Minyu. The young medic had ignored orders, running back into the kill zone with her medical kit. The swarmed her, still heard her screams in her mind. One by one they fell. Brave warriors of the Spear Guard, each one trained since childhood in the arts of combat and honor. They fought according to the codes. They maintained formation. They gave ground slowly, making the enemy pay for every meter. It didn't matter. They didn't care about honor or codes. They just kept coming. This energy spear had been in her family for 3 generations. Her grandmother carried it in the sector wars. Her mother wielded it during the rebellion of the outer colonies. Herself had used it in 12 major campaigns across 5 star systems. The spear broke after killing the 50th warrior. The crystalline blade simply shattered, unable to withstand another impact. Stared at the broken shaft in her hands for a long moment. Then she threw it aside and drew her sidearm. The sensed weakness. They began to close in, their movements coordinated by the larger command variants that directed the swarm. Fired, each shot placed with precision. 1 bolt, 1 dead, she didn't miss. Warriors never missed. 18 shots left, 17, 16. A leap from above. Rolled came up firing. The creature's head exploded in a spray of ichor. 15 shots. 2 more rushed from her left. She put bolts through both their thoraxes. 13 shots. The circle was tightening. Soon they would overwhelm her completely, backed against a cliff wall, giving herself one direction to defend. It was basic tactics. Make them come at you from one angle, kill them as they approach. But there were too many, always too many. 10 shots left. Thought about her family. Her father would receive notification of her death. He would be proud that she died fighting, maintaining her honor to the end. Her sister would weep, but she would understand. This was the way of warriors. 8 shots left. They were almost on her now. She could smell them, a rotten sweet stench that made her stomach turn. Their mandibles clicked in what might have been anticipation or communication. Maybe both. 6 shots left. Decided she would not die against this wall. If these were her final moments, she would die advancing, not retreating. She would charge into them, firing until her weapon ran dry, then fight with her bare hands until they dragged her down. She took a breath, preparing for the final rush. That's when the sky exploded. The sound hit her first, a massive sonic boom that rattled her teeth and made her ears ring. Every in the valley looked up simultaneously, their compound eyes tracking something streaking down from the clouds. It wasn't a ship, too small, a pod, a missile. The object hit the ground in the center of the formation with devastating force. The impact sent a shockwave rippling outward, throwing bodies through the air like leaves in a storm. Dirt and debris erupted in a massive cloud. Shielded her eyes, waiting for the dust to settle. They were confused, scrambling, their coordination broken. Several of the command variants were dead, crushed by the impact. A figure rose from the crater. It stood slowly, unhurried, as if it had all the time in the world. The armor was battered and scorched, painted in urban camouflage that had no business being on a frontier world. As the dust cleared, saw it was humanoid but shorter than a stockier, built for endurance rather than speed. A human. Had heard of humans, the species in the galactic community, barely a century since first contact. They were considered technologically backward, better suited for labor and engineering than combat. Their ships were slow. Their weapons were primitive. They had no warrior traditions worth mentioning. This human looked around the battlefield, taking in the swarm with what seemed like mild interest. He brushed remains off his shoulder casually, as if he just walked through a messy market rather than crashed from orbit. Then he turned toward. Even through the helmet's visor she could see his eyes. They were calm, too calm for someone surrounded by hundreds of enemies. The human spoke in accented galactic common, his voice carrying easily across the killing ground. "Mind if I join the fight?" Stared, was this creature insane, defective, suffering from brain damage from the fall? She opened her mouth to respond, but they didn't wait for conversation. A dozen warriors rushed the human from multiple angles. It was a coordinated strike, the kind that had killed 3 of squad members. The human moved. Had seen many species fight. She had trained with the best warriors from a dozen worlds. She had never seen anyone move like this. The human didn't take a defensive stance. He didn't try to meet the charge head-on. Instead, he went low and forward, sliding under the first's attack. Something in his hand barked twice, loud chemical reports that echoed off the cliffs. 2 dropped, holes punched through their thoraxes. The human rolled, came up on one knee, and the weapon barked again. 3 more shots, 3 more dead. He moved constantly, never staying in one place. When it got too close, he didn't try to fight it fairly. He threw dirt in its eyes, shot it in the leg joints, used its own body as a shield against the others. It was brutal, efficient, and completely without honor. Watched simultaneously, appalled and fascinated. This was everything the warrior codes taught against. No proper stance, no measured movements, just raw, vicious survival. But it was working. The human pulled something from his belt and threw it into a cluster of. The explosion sent chitin and ichor spraying across the rocks. He didn't wait to see the result, already moving to his next position. More fell, then more. The human fought his way toward, leaving a trail of bodies. When he reached her position, he pressed his back to the cliff beside her and reloaded his weapon with practiced speed. "You hurt?" he asked, not looking at her, eyes scanning for threats. "No, managed. Who are you?" "Names, your military, yeah. Where's your squad?" His throat tightened. "Dead, all dead." Nodded once, accepting this. "Extraction point. 20 kilometers northeast, but it's surrounded. We can't reach it." The human smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Can't is a strong word. I've been making impossible trips all week." A command variant shrieked orders to the swarm. The remaining warriors began to reorganize, forming up for another assault. Checked his ammunition. Got enough rounds for maybe another 100. You. Looked at her weapon. 6 shots. "Then let's make them count. You ready to move?" Had spent 30 years following the codes. 30 years of discipline, honor, and proper combat doctrine. Every instinct told her this human's methods were wrong. But she was alive. Her entire squad was dead, and she was alive because this crude, dishonorable human had fallen from the sky. "Yes," she said, "I'm ready." Grinned. "Good, stay close and keep up. And whatever you do, don't fight fair. These things sure as hell won't." They charged again, and followed the human into the chaos, leaving behind everything she thought she knew about war. They ran through the valley as the sun set behind the purple cliffs, moved with steady purpose, not the sprint expected but a ground-eating pace he could maintain for hours. She kept up easily with her longer legs, but she noticed he never seemed to tire. Behind them, the reorganized. Their clicking and chittering echoed off the canyon walls, a sound that meant pursuit and death. Had heard it too many times today. "Your ship," said between breaths, "you said it was shot down." Vaulted over a fallen boulder without breaking stride. 3 days ago, patrol caught me in low orbit, didn't stick around to see if I could land nicely. You jumped from a damaged ship in atmosphere. Seemed better than riding it all the way down. He paused at a narrow gap between rocks, checking both directions. This way, trail leads to higher ground. Followed him into the gap. It was barely wide enough for her shoulders, squeezed through easily with his smaller human frame. "How did you survive the fall?" "Carefully, kept moving. Had a partial chute, enough to slow me down before I hit the trees. Spent the last 3 days evading scouts and trying to find a way off this rock." He said it so casually, like surviving a ship crash, and 3 days alone in hostile territory was unremarkable. Had trained with survival experts. None of them would have lasted alone against hunters for that long. They emerged from the gap onto a ridge. The land stretched before them, broken and from orbital bombardment. In the distance, could see the faint glow of her people's fortress city. 20 kilometers, might as well be 1,000 with the between them and safety. Knelt and pulled out a battered device. He tapped it several times, frowning at the readout. "Your extraction point is northeast." "Yes, the valley beyond those hills," pointed, "but I told you it's surrounded." "Everything's surrounded until you break the encirclement." Stood and started walking again. "We'll move parallel to the main lines. They'll expect us to go straight for the extraction point. We don't do what they expect." Caught up to him. "You keep saying we. I never asked for your help beyond the valley." Glanced at her. Even in the fading light, she could see the scars on his face through the open visor. Burns, claw marks. This human had seen many battles. "You got a ship waiting. I need off this planet. Seems like our goals line up. Unless you'd rather I leave you here." "No," the word came quickly, felt ashamed of how quickly. "I meant, why help at all? You could have avoided the valley, saved yourself." Was quiet for a long moment. They walked in silence, just the sound of their footsteps on rock and the distant clicking of scouts. Finally he spoke. "Where I'm from we have a saying, no one fights alone. Saw you making your stand down there, thought I'd lend a hand." "That's it, a saying." "That's it." Didn't believe him, but she didn't press. Warriors had their own reasons for fighting. Perhaps humans did too. They traveled through the night. His enhanced vision could see clearly in the dark, and had some kind of device in his helmet that illuminated his path. He moved with confidence through terrain he shouldn't know, finding paths and passages that would have missed. "You've been here before," she said, "not a question." "Scouted this area 2 days ago. Thought it might be a route to the," climbed over a rockfall. "Found instead, had to circle back." "You memorized the terrain in one pass." "Had nothing else to do." They stopped to rest near dawn. Was tired, her leg muscles burning from the constant movement. Stood watch, his weapon ready, eyes scanning the darkness. He didn't sit, didn't lean against anything. Just stood there, perfectly alert. "Do humans not need rest?" asked. "We do, just not now," tilted his head, listening. "You should sleep. I'll wake you if anything moves." "I can't sleep knowing the enemy is near." Looked at her. "That's why you'll be exhausted when we need to fight. Your people train for honor. Mine train for survival. Survival means sleeping when you can, because you never know when you'll get another chance." He was right, and hated that he was right. She tried to stay awake, but her body betrayed her. Combat exhaustion finally caught up, and she drifted off despite herself. She woke his hand on her shoulder. "We've got movement. 2 scouts, maybe 300 meters out." Was alert immediately, the combat training taking over. She reached for her sidearm. 4 shots left. She'd used 2 more during the night march when a hunter had gotten too close. "Let them pass," whispered. We can't afford the noise. They're hunting us. They're hunting something, might not be us, might be local prey, watched through some kind of visual device. They're not moving like they're on a fresh trail. Watched the scouts pass below their position. Was right. They were searching but not with purpose, just routine patrol patterns. When they were gone, stood. Let's move. We've got maybe 6 hours before full daylight. Want to be in the canyon system before then. They walked. His mind wandered to fighting style. No warrior would fight like that, using dirt and rocks, shooting enemies in the joints instead of center mass, throwing explosives instead of meeting the enemy blade to blade. Your people, she said, they don't have warrior codes. Laughed a short bitter sound. We have plenty of codes, laws of war, rules of engagement. Geneva Conventions. The problem is, codes only work when both sides follow them. Then why have them at all? Because we'd like to think we're better than our worst impulses. Checked his weapon, ensuring the ammunition was seated properly. But when someone breaks the rules and wins, everyone else learns real quick that honor doesn't stop bullets. That's a bleak way to see war. War is bleak. Dressing it up with honor and codes doesn't change that. Pointed ahead. Canyon entrance. This is where it gets tricky. The canyon mouth yawned before them, dark and uninviting. Could smell the sharp tang of pheromones. They'd been here. Maybe still were. We could go around, she suggested. Adds 8 hours to the journey. You have 8 hours of safety left. Didn't wait for an answer. He started forward into the darkness. Followed, every instinct screaming that this was wrong. The canyon was a natural kill zone. Narrow passages, limited sight lines, perfect ambush territory. But moved through it like he belonged there. He checked corners, avoided obvious paths, and twice stopped before she stepped on patches of ground covered in spores. How do you know these things? She asked. Learn to read terrain. Learn to think like prey. Pointed to scratches on the canyon wall. Mark their territory. You can see their patrol routes if you know what to look for. They were halfway through the canyon when heard it. A clicking sound, closer than it should be. Heard it too. He raised his fist, the universal signal to stop. A hunter dropped from above. These weren't like the swarm warriors. Hunters were larger, smarter, with reinforced carapaces and neural clusters that let them coordinate complex attacks. This one had been waiting above them, perfectly silent. It fell toward, claws extended. She tried to dodge, but the space was too confined. Moved faster than she thought possible. He slammed into her, pushing her aside. The hunter's claws tore through the space where she'd been standing. His weapon came up, and he fired point-blank into the creature's soft underbelly. The hunter shrieked and fell, ichor pooling on the canyon floor. Thanks, breathed. Don't mention it, but we need to move. That scream just told every in 5 kilometers where we are. They ran. Behind them the clicking intensified. The hunt was on. Led them through twisting passages, up steep climbs, across narrow ledges that made stomach clench. More appeared, drawn by the hunter's death cry. Shot them without hesitation, each bullet carefully placed. They burst out of the canyon into open ground as the sun broke over the horizon. Ahead, could see the hills that marked the approach to her extraction point. How much ammunition do you have left? She asked. Checked his weapon. 40 rounds, maybe less. And we still have to break through the encirclement. Yeah, looked at the hills, calculating. Definitely going to need a better plan than shooting our way through. Looked at this strange human who fought without honor but saved her life twice. What do you suggest? Smiled, and it was the expression of someone who'd survived impossible odds before. Give me an hour to scout ahead. I'll figure something out. Humans are good at making bad situations slightly less bad. That's not inspiring confidence. Confidence gets you killed, caution keeps you breathing. Handed her a small device. Stay here, I'll signal when I find a route. And She looked at him, surprised he'd used her name. If I don't come back in 2 hours, make a run for it alone. Don't wait for me. Before she could respond, he was gone, disappearing into the rocks like a ghost. Waited in the rocks, watching the sun climb higher. Every instinct told her to move, to keep heading toward the extraction point. Waiting made her vulnerable, but had asked for 2 hours, and some part of her trusted this human she barely knew. The device in her hand buzzed after 90 minutes, a simple pulse, signal. She found him a half-kilometer north, crouched behind a ridge overlooking the valley. He didn't speak, just pointed down. Stomach sank. The extraction valley was worse than she'd thought. Thousands of covered the ground like a living carpet. They weren't just surrounding her ship anymore. They were building something. Bioship, said quietly. Saw the construction pattern before. They're staging for a major assault on your fortress city. Could see it now. The massive organic structure taking shape in the center of the formation. Bioships were this answer to capital ships, grown rather than built. When mature, they could coordinate entire invasion forces. My ship can't take off through that, said, even if we reached it. No, agreed. Not while that bioship is coordinating them. They'd tear your ship apart before it cleared the atmosphere. Then we're trapped. Studied the valley through his visual device. Maybe not. See that ridge on the far side? Looks like old fortifications. Probably has weapons caches. Abandoned 3 months ago when the first landed. Abandoned means unmanned, not empty, lowered the device. We get to those fortifications, find something that makes a big enough boom and take out that bioship. The chaos should give your ship enough time to launch. Stared at him. You want to attack an entire staging ground with 2 people and whatever we find in old bunkers. Got a better idea. She didn't. This is insane. Probably, but I've done insane before. Usually works out. Started moving along the ridge. Come on, we've got a lot of ground to cover. They circled the valley, staying high on the ridges where patrols were lighter. Twice they had to hide while scout groups passed below. Once, a hunter came within meters of their position. Killed it silently with a knife, the blade finding the gap in its armor with surgical precision. Where did you learn to fight like this? Asked as they moved the body out of sight. Earth, my planet, cleaned his knife on the dead's carapace. We didn't have one enemy, we had hundreds. Different nations, different tribes, all fighting for the same resources. You learn to adapt or you die. Your people fought each other before reaching the stars. Still fighting in some places. Sheathed the knife. Making it to space didn't solve our problems, just gave us more room to spread them around. Had never considered that. Every species she knew had unified before joining the galactic community. The had their honor codes. The had their collective consciousness. The Al had their philosophical unity. Humans were broken, divided, and somehow still survived. They reached the old fortifications as the sun began to set. The entrance was partially collapsed, but found a gap big enough to squeeze through. Inside, the bunker smelled of dust and decay. Enhanced vision cut through the darkness. She saw empty weapon racks, overturned furniture, signs of a hasty evacuation. They took everything when they left. Not everything. Moved deeper into the bunker, his helmet light sweeping the corners. Military always leaves something behind. Too heavy, too dangerous, or too old to bother with. He was right. In a sealed storage room, they found cases of thermal charges. Old models, at least 50 years out of date, but still functional. Opened one case and examined the explosive carefully. These will do. Need about 6 of them to crack a bioship's neural core. How do you know that? Seen bioships die before. Started loading charges into a makeshift pack. Destroyed one on different hive, same basic biology. Helped him pack the charges. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear but from the reality of what they were about to do. This is a suicide mission. Only if we die, sealed the pack. I don't plan on dying today. They won't let us just walk into their bioship. No, they won't. That's why you're not coming with me. His head snapped up. What? Met her eyes. You make a run for your extraction ship. Draw as many as you can. While they're focused on you, I slip into the bioship and plant the charges. That's not acceptable. I won't let you sacrifice yourself for me. It's not a sacrifice, it's tactics, adjusted the pack straps. Your people are faster than humans. You've got a better chance of reaching that ship alive. I've got experience infiltrating enemy positions. We both do what we're good at. This violates every code of honor. The warrior who saves a life is owed a debt. I cannot repay that debt by letting you die. Laughed, tired and bitter. I'm not dying. I'm going to blow up a bioship and walk away. Done it before. Alone against thousands of. I've faced worse odds. He stood, shouldering the pack. Besides, someone needs to tell your fleet about the staging ground. If I don't make it, you need to. Wanted to argue more, but the expression told her it was pointless. He'd already decided. Humans, she was learning, were as stubborn as they were crazy. They left the bunker as night fell. The valley below glowed with bioluminescence from the encampment. The bioship pulsed with sickly light, its growth nearly complete. Once you start your run, you don't stop, said. Don't look back. Don't try to help me. Just get to your ship and get airborne. And if your plan fails, then I'll improvise. Humans are good at that too. Pulled something from his belt and handed it to her. A small device, similar to a communicator but cruder. Frequency is already set. If I succeed, I'll signal. Wait 30 seconds after the signal, then launch. The explosion should give you a clear window. Took the device. Don't, he smiled, and for the first time it seemed genuine. We don't know each other well enough for emotional goodbyes. You run, I blow things up, we both survive. Simple. He started to move toward his infiltration point, then paused. One more thing. If this does go wrong, tell your commanders about the staging ground. Make them understand they aren't just taking this planet. They're preparing to hit your fortress city with everything they have. I will. Good, checked his weapon one last time. See you on the other side, Commander. He disappeared into the darkness, leaving alone on the ridge. She watched the valley for another minute, then began her own approach. The extraction ship sat on the far side, its hull damaged but still capable of flight. Corporal, her pilot, would be waiting inside, wondering if anyone was left alive to evacuate. Reached the edge of the perimeter as the moon rose. This was it. The moment she committed to this insane plan. She thought about her training, about honor and codes and proper combat doctrine. Everything she'd been taught said this was wrong. You didn't split your forces. You didn't sacrifice warriors for tactical advantage. You faced your enemies with courage and discipline. But he didn't fight with honor, he fought to survive. And right now, survival mattered more than codes. Took a deep breath and stepped into the open. She fired her sidearm into the nearest cluster of the energy bolts burning bright in the darkness. Every eye in the valley turned toward her. Then she ran. The swarm erupted into motion. Thousands of warriors surged toward her, their clicking rising to a deafening roar. Sprinted with everything she had, her long legs eating up ground. Shots came from behind. Bioweapons spat acid and spines. She dodged, rolled, kept moving. Her training took over, every muscle memory honed by decades of combat. The extraction ship's lights came on, had seen her. The boarding ramp began to lower. Glanced back once, she couldn't help it. In the distance, barely visible against the bioship's glow, she saw a small figure climbing the organic structure's side, moving like a shadow, like a ghost. Like a human who'd survived impossible odds before and planned to do it again. Turned forward and ran faster. She had a ship to catch and a message to deliver, and somewhere behind her had a bioship to destroy. The night exploded with gunfire and screams as the swarm closed in, but didn't stop. She couldn't, not when a human was counting on her to do her part. She ran toward the ship, toward safety, toward survival. Just like it taught her. Climbed the bioship's exterior like a parasite ascending its host. The organic surface was warm and slightly damp, poolsing with whatever passed for a heartbeat in biology. His stolen camouflage system bent light around him, making him nearly invisible. Nearly, not completely. He had maybe 20 minutes before the system's power cell died. Below he heard the swarm responding to his attack. Good. She was fast, drawing them away like he'd hoped, but he could hear the density of the response. Thousands of warriors converging on one soldier. She better be as good as she thinks she is. Found an entry point where the bioship's armor was thinner. New growth, not fully hardened. He pulled out his knife and cut carefully, peeling back layers of organic tissue. The ship didn't react. Either it couldn't feel this kind of damage, or it didn't care about one small wound. He slipped inside. The interior was worse than the exterior. Walls made of flesh pulsed and breathed. Bioluminescent fluids dripped from the ceiling. The air was thick and hot, smelling like rot and copper. Had been inside bioships before, but he never got used to it. Every human instinct screamed that he was inside something alive, something that could digest him if it realized he was there. He moved through the corridors, following the neural pathways deeper into the structure. They had predictable biology. The neural core was always central, always heavily protected. He just had to find it before his camouflage failed or someone noticed the infiltrator. Past workers tending to the ship's growth. They didn't see him. The camouflage held. He moved like water, silent and smooth, every step placed carefully. He found the neural chamber after 15 minutes of searching. It was massive, a cathedral of organic architecture. The walls were lined with neural clusters, poolsing with electrical activity. In the center, a brain the size of a small building coordinated the entire invasion force. And it was guarded. A dozen warriors stood watch, but these weren't normal soldiers. They were bigger, their carapaces covered in battle scars, elite guards, and in the back of the chamber something else moved. A queen. Had only seen a queen once before, and that was from a safe distance through a rifle scope. Up close, she was terrifying. 3 times the size of a normal, with a massive neural cluster visible through translucent armor plating. Her mandibles were lined with sensory organs that could probably detect a heartbeat from across the room. She turned toward his position. Froze, the camouflage was still active. She shouldn't be able to see him. The queen spoke in clicking, hissing galactic common. I know you are there, human. Your technology hides you from simple warriors, but not from me. His cover was blown, dropped the camouflage and raised his weapon. The elite guards moved to intercept, but the queen raised one claw and they stopped. Interesting, she said, studying him. You infiltrated my ship alone. You carry explosives. You plan to destroy this neural core and create chaos for your ally to escape. Said nothing. His finger rested on the trigger, but he didn't fire. Not yet. We have been studying your species, the queen continued. Humans. You fight differently than other species in the galactic community. No honor codes, no restraint. You use whatever advantage you can find. You've done your homework. We consume knowledge as we consume worlds. Your people interest us. The queen moved closer, her massive form blocking the exit. You do not fight for territory or resources. You fight to survive. This makes you efficient. Glad you approve. Started backing toward the neural core, keeping his weapon trained on the queen. But I'm still going to blow up your ship. Are you? The queen's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. You have perhaps 30 rounds in that weapon. I have 12 elite guards. The neural core is reinforced against small explosives. Even if you succeed in damaging it, you will die here. Probably. Yet you proceed anyway. Why? Thought about her squad, dead in the valley. About Minu and all the others who died following their codes and their honor. Because someone needs to. The queen was silent for a moment, then she made an offer. Join us. Blinked to what? The swarm has been integrating useful species into our collective. Your kind would make excellent shock troops. You fight not for glory but for survival. That is efficient. That is what we are. You want to turn humans into. We want to give humans purpose, direction. You wage war on yourselves because you lack unity. We can provide that unity. Lowered his weapon slightly, seeming to consider. The elite guards tensed, waiting for the queen's signal. You know what the problem with your offer is, said. Tell me. You're right, we fight to survive, which is exactly why we'll never join you. Pulled the detonator from his belt. Because we know what happens when you run out of enemies to fight. You turn on each other. We've done it enough times to recognize it. The queen realized what he was doing. Stop him. Triggered the countdown, 30 seconds. The elite guards rushed him. Fired, taking down 3 before they closed the distance. Then it was close combat and his rifle was useless. He dropped it and pulled his knife. The blade found gaps in chitin armor, slicing through neural clusters and joint connections, but there were too many. A claw tore through his shoulder, grunted, spinning away from the follow-up strike. Another guard caught him in the ribs, cracking armor and bone. He felt something pop inside his chest. 20 seconds. Fought through the pain. He'd been hurt before, worse than this. He just needed to stay alive long enough for the charges to blow. Another claw slashed across his leg, cutting deep. His knee buckled. He went down, still fighting, still moving. 15 seconds. The queen watched, her expression unreadable. You could have lived, joined us. Why choose death? Looked up at her, blood running down his face. Because, you don't get it. Humans don't fight to win, we fight so others don't have to. He thought about, hoped she'd made it to her ship, hoped this was worth it. 10 seconds. The elite guards pinned him down. One raised a claw to strike the killing blow. The world exploded. The charges detonated simultaneously, tearing through the neural core. The bioship screamed, a sound that vibrated through every organic surface. The neural pathways ruptured, synaptic fluid spraying like arterial blood. Felt the concussive force throw him across the chamber. He hit a wall hard enough to crack more ribs. The elite guards were shredded by the blast, their bodies torn apart. The queen stumbled, her connection to the swarm severed. She shrieked in rage and loss. Tried to stand. His leg wouldn't support his weight. Broken. He pulled himself forward using his arms, dragging his useless leg behind him. The bioship was dying. Its corridors collapsed, organic matter dissolving as the neural core's death spread through the structure. Needed to get out before the whole thing came down. He crawled toward where he remembered the exit being. Behind him, the queen's screams faded as she died with her ship. Outside, he heard chaos. The swarm's coordination was broken. Individuals fought each other, reverted to base instincts without the neural network guiding them. Reached a rupture in the ship's hull. He could see the sky. The extraction ship was rising, its engines burning bright. She made it good. Pulled himself through the rupture and fell. He hit the ground outside the bioship, rolling. Pain flared through his broken body, but he kept moving. Warriors ran past him, confused and disoriented. None of them noticed the broken human crawling away from their dying mothership. Managed 50 meters before his strength gave out. He collapsed, face down in the dirt. He heard engines. The extraction ship was still climbing, but something about the sound was wrong. It was circling back. No, keep going, get out of here. But the ship descended, hovering above the battlefield. A boarding ramp lowered. Saw at the ramp, a massive door gun in her hands. She was providing covering fire, keeping the disorganized at bay. She was coming back for him. Tried to stand, couldn't. His vision was blurring, blood loss and shock catching up. The ship touched down nearby. His voice crackled over the external speakers. We have maybe 20 seconds before they regroup. Saw jump from the ramp and run toward him. Are you insane? He thought, just leave me. But she wasn't leaving. She grabbed him under the arms and started dragging him toward the ship. You're heavy, she grunted. Human, gravity stronger, managed. Claws reached for them, fired her sidearm one-handed while pulling with the other, her last shots, then the weapon was empty. They weren't going to make it. The bioship's death scream reached a crescendo, then it exploded. The shockwave knocked and forward. They tumbled, somehow keeping her grip on the injured human. She pulled him up the ramp. Go, go, go. The ship's engines roared. They lifted off as warriors swarmed the landing site, too late. Lay on the cargo bay floor, breathing hard. Each breath was agony, definitely punctured lung. Stood over him, also breathing hard. You told me not to look back. You're bad at following orders. Learned that from a human. Laughed, then immediately regretted it as pain shot through his chest. Fair. The ship broke atmosphere. They were safe. They'd made it. Closed his eyes, just for a moment, just to rest. Hey, his voice cut through the darkness. Don't die on me. You promised this wasn't a sacrifice mission. Not dying, mumbled, just resting. Humans are good at bouncing back. He felt hands checking his wounds, heard her shouting for medical supplies. Then darkness took him, and he knew nothing more. Woke up in pain, that was good. Pain meant he was alive. He opened his eyes to see a white ceiling. Medical bay. Design from the look of it. Clean lines, efficient layout, everything organized with military precision. A medic noticed he was awake and immediately called for someone. Within minutes, a doctor arrived, checking readouts on devices didn't recognize. You should be dead, the doctor said without preamble. Yeah, I get that a lot. Broken ribs, punctured lung, severe blood loss, multiple lacerations. The doctor continued reading from his display. Your body somehow continued functioning through all of this. Human physiology is disturbing. We're built tough. Tried to sit up. Bad idea. Pain shot through his chest. Don't move. You have 3 more days of healing before you're cleared for even basic activity. The doctor made notes on his display. Commander asked to be when you woke. I'll send word. The doctor left, lay back staring at the ceiling. He'd survived again. He wasn't sure if that was luck or curse anymore. Arrived 30 minutes later. She looked different. Cleaned up in fresh uniform, her silver battle marks polished, but her eyes were tired. You came back for me, said. Yes. That was stupid. I learned from a human that sometimes stupid is the only option that works. Pulled up a chair. You destroyed the bioship. The swarm fell apart. My people were able to mount a counterattack and drive the remaining off-planet. Good. You saved thousands of lives. Maybe tens of thousands if that invasion force had reached the fortress city. Just doing what needed doing. Was quiet for a moment. My commanders want to speak with you about human military tactics, about how you fight. I'm not military anymore, just a freelancer. They know, they still want to speak with you. Leaned forward. What you did down there, how you fought, it's making the military reconsider everything we thought we knew about warfare. That's so. Fleet Commander reviewed my report personally. He's been a soldier for 60 years. He said he's never seen anything like what you accomplished. Shifted slightly, trying to get comfortable. What's he want? To lock me up, study me. To learn from you, met his eyes. The galaxy is changing. They aren't the only threat anymore. There are hostile machine intelligences in the outer sectors, dimensional breaches releasing things we don't have names for, Traditional warfare might not be enough. So you want humans to teach you how to fight dirty. We want to understand how to fight enemies that don't follow any rules at all. Stood. Commander wants to meet you when you're healed. Watched her head toward the door. Why did you really come back for me? Paused. Because you were right about one thing. Honor doesn't mean much if you're dead, but it means everything if you're alive to uphold it. You saved my life. I couldn't leave you behind. Even though I'm just a human, second-rate soldier, good for labor and engineering. Smiled slightly. I was wrong about that, about many things. She left, lay back, processing. The wanted to learn human warfare. That could be good or very bad. Humans had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing each other. Introducing those tactics to the wider galaxy might solve problems or create new ones. 3 days later was cleared for basic activity. His ribs were still tender, his legs still weak, but human healing factors had done their work. The doctors were fascinated by how quickly he'd recovered. Fleet Commander met him in an observation deck overlooking the planet. The old warrior looked exactly like expected. Tall, disciplined, with battle marks covering his arms and face. A career soldier who'd seen more combat than most people could imagine. Commander speaks highly of you, said without preamble. She's a good soldier, fought well even when things went bad. She tells me you fight without honor. I fight to survive. Honor is a luxury for people who aren't about to die. Considered this. The Empire has maintained peace through strength and honor for 2,000 years. Our codes keep us civilized. They separate us from savages. And when the savages attack, what then? We defeat them with superior discipline and training. How's that working out against the? His expression didn't change but saw something flicker in his eyes. The old warrior knew the truth. Traditional methods weren't enough anymore. Your people fight differently, said. You use tactics we would consider dishonorable. Ambushes, asymmetric warfare, targeting command structures instead of meeting the enemy blade to blade. We use what works. War isn't a game with rules. It's survival with consequences. And you believe this approach is superior. Shook his head. Not superior, just different. Your warriors are better trained, better equipped, more disciplined than humans, but humans have one advantage you don't. What's that? We've lost. A lot. Every human knows what defeat feels like because we've done it to each other for thousands of years. We know how to fight when we're outmatched, outnumbered, and out of options. Walked to the observation window, looking down at the planet. I've been a soldier for 60 years. I've never lost a battle. My people pride themselves on our military record. That's good, but it also means you don't know how to win when you're losing. The fleet commander turned back to, I want to propose something. A joint training program between forces and human military advisors. Not to make my warriors fight like humans, but to help them understand how to counter enemies who fight like you do. You want humans to teach how to fight dirty. I want my people to survive what's coming, that we're just the beginning. Pulled up a holographic display. It showed multiple star systems marked with threat indicators. Machine intelligences here, dimensional anomalies there, unknown hostile forces in this sector. The galaxy is becoming more dangerous, and our traditional methods may not be sufficient. Studied the display. It was worse than he'd thought. What makes you think humans can help? Because you already know how to fight these kinds of wars. Your species has been doing it since you lived in caves. Close the display. I'm offering you a position as a tactical consultant. Help us prepare for what's coming. I'm not a diplomat or a teacher. No, you're a survivor. That's exactly what we need. Thought about it. He'd been a freelancer for 3 years, taking odd jobs, staying out of major conflicts. But maybe that wasn't enough anymore. Maybe the galaxy needed people who knew how to fight when honor and codes weren't enough. I'll think about it, he said finally. Nodded, that's all I ask. The meeting ended and found himself back in the medical bay, was waiting there. "I heard the commander's offer," she said. "Yeah. What will you do?" Sat on one of the medical beds, his ribs still aching. "What would you do if you were me?" Sat across from him. 3 days ago I would have said refuse, that humans have nothing to teach thee about warfare, but now, she looked at her hands. My entire squad died following the codes. I survived by breaking them. That's not an easy thing to accept. The codes aren't wrong, they're just not enough. Then what is enough? Adaptation, flexibility, understanding that the enemy doesn't care about your rules. Stood, testing his leg, still weak but functional. Your people are good soldiers, maybe the best in the galaxy for traditional combat, but the galaxy isn't traditional anymore. And you think humans can help? I think humans bring perspective. We know what it's like to fight enemies who don't follow any codes. We know how to win when we're supposed to lose. Walk to the window. Question is whether the galaxy is ready for that. Joined him at the window. I volunteered for the training program. I'll be the first officer to train with human forces. Looked at her. Why? Because you saved my life using methods I was taught to despise. Because my squad died following codes that the enemy ignored. Because I need to understand why survival sometimes matters more than honor. That's going to be hard for your people to accept. I know, but someone needs to bridge this gap. Might as well be me. They stood in silence, watching the planet rotate below. Somewhere down there, corpses were being cleared. Engineers were rebuilding. Life continued, thanks to a human who fell from the sky and a who learned to fight without honor. Days later, found himself in a transport headed for Earth. He'd accepted its offer, partly because it was the right thing to do, partly because he had nowhere else to go. Was on the same transport, heading to human military facilities for cross-training. They sat in the observation deck during the long jump between systems. "I never thanked you properly," said, "for saving my life. You came back for me, we're even. According to law, I still owe you a life debt. Then pay it by surviving, by learning what you need to learn and teaching your people." Pulled out a battered star chart. "The galaxy's about to get a lot more dangerous. We're going to need warriors who understand both honor and pragmatism. Can those two things coexist? They have to, because the enemies coming don't care about either." The transport dropped out of jump near Earth. Saw his through the viewport, blue and white, and from centuries of conflict. "That's where you're from?" asked. "Yeah, beautiful, isn't it? Also incredibly dangerous. We've got about 200 different governments down there, and half of them hate the other half. How do you survive like that?" "We adapt, we compromise. We fight when we have to and make peace when we can." Stood. "Not perfect, but it's gotten us this far." The transport descended toward Earth's military coordination center. Down there, human and officers would meet for the first time as equals. They would learn from each other, argue with each other, probably hate each other at first. But eventually, they would forge something new, a way of fighting that combined discipline with human desperation, honor with pragmatism, codes with survival instinct. The galaxy needed that, because the enemies coming didn't care about rules or tradition or ancient codes. They only cared about winning. And if the civilized species of the galaxy wanted to survive, they needed to learn from the ones who'd been fighting to survive since before they reached the stars. As the transport touched down, looked at, "Ready for this?" "No," she admitted, "but I learned from a human that being ready isn't the point. Moving forward is." Smiled. Maybe there was hope for this partnership after all. They walked off the transport together, a warrior and a human survivor, ready to teach the galaxy what happens when honor meets necessity. The stars waited, full of threats and challenges and wars yet to come. But somewhere between the ancient codes and the desperate tactics, between honor and survival, humanity and the wider galaxy would find a way forward. They had to, because the alternative was extinction. And humans, above all else, knew how to refuse that fate.